The words left her mouth like a bullet I never saw coming. And the second they hit, my heart stopped mid-beat. The way a car engine seizes when the oil's been drained dry. I was standing in our kitchen, the one we painted that soft sage green the summer we moved in. The one where she used to dance barefoot while I flipped pancakes on Sunday mornings. And now the air felt thick, like someone had cranked the humidity to 100 and left the windows sealed. Emily's eyes were wide, shining with this fragile, trembling joy, the kind that made her bite her lower lip the way she always did when she was nervous excited. And she reached for my hand across the granite island still flecked with flour from the cookies she'd baked for the neighbors. "The doctor just called," she whispered, voice cracking like thin ice. "I'm pregnant." And I swear the room tilted, the pendant lights above us swaying even though nothing moved, because in that exact moment every promise we'd ever made, every late-night whisper about growing old on the porch swing, every stupid inside joke about naming our future kids after Star Wars characters, it all curdled into something sour and unrecognizable. I felt the smirk crawl across my face before I could stop it, this ugly, involuntary twist of my lips that had nothing to do with humor and everything to do with the sudden, brutal clarity slicing through the fog of my love for her. "Interesting," I said, the word tasting like rust on my tongue. "Since I've been sterile since 2020. She blinked once, twice, the color draining from her cheeks so fast it was like someone had pulled a plug behind her eyes. Her hand, the one that had been reaching for mine, froze midair, fingers curling into a loose fist as if she just remembered she was holding something fragile and poisonous. I watched the joy leak out of her face the way air hisses from a punctured tire, and in its place came this flicker of panic, raw and animal, the kind you see in deer right before the headlights swallow them whole. What do you mean?" she stammered, but her voice was already shrinking, folding in on itself because she knew. God, she knew. I could see it in the way her shoulders hunched forward, protective, like she was bracing for a blow she'd been expecting for months. And I just stood there, the smirk still plastered on my face like a Halloween mask I couldn't peel off, feeling the floor drop out from under me even though my feet never moved. "Let me take you back, not far, just far enough to understand how we got here, because I need you to feel the weight of what she just shattered." Emily and I met in 2015 at a mutual friend's backyard barbecue, the kind where the grill smoke hangs low and the music is too loud and everyone's pretending they're not checking their phones every 5 minutes. She was wearing this yellow sundress that caught the golden hour light just right, and when she laughed at something I said, something stupid about preferring dogs to people, she tilted her head back and the sound of it wrapped around my ribs like a promise. We were married 2 years later in a little vineyard upstate, her in lace, me in a suit that cost more than my first car. Both of us drunk on the idea that we were the lucky ones, the ones who'd beat the odds. And for a while we did. We built a life in this house with the creaky third stair, and the skylight in the bathroom that leaks when it rains sideways. We fought about stupid things, whose turn it was to take out the recycling, whether we should get a king bed or keep the queen because it forced us to stay close, and we made up with the kind of sex that left us laughing into each other's necks at 2 a.m. We tried for kids, God how we tried, month after month of negative tests and forced smiles and me holding her while she cried into my shirt because another cycle had passed. Then 2020 happened, the year the world caught fire and my body decided to join the blaze. I'd always had low motility, borderline, but after a brutal case of mumps that hit me like a freight train, fever, swollen glands, the works, the urologist sat me down in his sterile office with the fake ferns and delivered the news. Count so low it might as well be 0, reversal unlikely, adoption or donor sperm are only realistic paths. I remember staring at the pamphlet he handed me, the one with the smiling couple and the tagline, "There's more than one way to build a family," and feeling this hollow ache bloom in my chest. Emily cried when I told her, big ugly sobs that shook her whole body, but then she wiped her face and said, "We'll figure it out together. I don't need a mini you running around. I just need you." And I believed her. I believed her with every fiber of my stupid, trusting heart. So when she said pregnant, the math didn't add up, and the smirk was my body's way of protecting itself from the arithmetic of betrayal. She started talking fast then, words tumbling over each other like she was trying to outrun the truth. "It must be a mistake, maybe the vasectomy failed, those things happen, right? 1% chance or something." But her eyes wouldn't meet mine, darting instead to the fridge where we still had that ultrasound picture from her sister's kid, the one we'd cooed over like idiots pretending it was practice for our own. I felt the anger rise, hot and metallic, but underneath it was this deeper, more terrifying thing, grief sharp as broken glass. Because I loved her so much it had become a reflex, like breathing, and now every breath tasted like her lies. I asked the question slowly, deliberately, the way you pick at a scab you know will bleed. When did she find out? This morning. How far along? 8 weeks. Had she been to the doctor in person? No, just the call. Each answer landed like a pebble in a pond, rippling out, distorting the reflection of the life I thought we had. And then I asked the one that broke me open. Who is he, Em? She flinched like I'd slapped her, and the silence that followed was so complete I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the wall clock, the blood rushing in my ears. She didn't deny it. That was the worst part. She just stood there, arms wrapped around her middle like she was holding the baby in already, protecting it from me, and the tears started slow at first, then in a flood. I'm sorry, she whispered, and it wasn't the apology of someone caught in a white lie. It was the apology of someone who'd been carrying a boulder for months and finally set it down on my chest. His name is Connor, she said eventually, voice barely audible. Connor from her office, the one who'd started as a mentor when she made senior designer, the one who sent her funny memes during late-night deadlines. The one who listened when she vented about my long hours at the firm, about how we'd stopped trying for kids and started living parallel lives. It started with drinks after a client pitch, then coffee that turned into dinners that turned into nights she claimed were team strategy sessions. She swore it was only twice, that she'd ended it weeks ago, that the guilt had been eating her alive, but the timeline didn't matter anymore. The betrayal wasn't a single moment. It was a slow erosion, 1,000 tiny choices that led her out of our bed and into his. And the baby, God, the baby was an accident, a broken condom, a moment of weakness she couldn't undo. She'd planned to tell me everything, she said, after the first trimester, after she knew it would stick, because she thought maybe I'd forgive her, maybe we could raise it together, maybe love could stretch that far. But standing there in our kitchen, watching her crumble, I felt that love snap like an overstretched rubber band, the sting sharp and final. I didn't yell. I wanted to hurl the coffee mug on the counter through the window, wanted to scream until my throat bled. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I felt this cold, clinical detachment settle over me. The kind I used in boardrooms when a deal was tanking and I needed to stay sharp. I asked her to leave. Just for tonight, I said, go to your sister's, give me space to think. She nodded, numb, grabbing her purse with shaking hands, and as she walked past me I caught the faint scent of her shampoo. Vanilla and something citrus, and it hit me like a punch that I might never smell it on my pillow again. The door closed with a soft click, and then I was alone with the echo of her confession and the ghost of the family we'd never have. I sat on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, and let myself cry for the first time since my dad's funeral. Big ugly sobs that came from somewhere deeper than my gut, from the place where I'd stored every hope I'd ever had for us. I thought about the vasectomy consult, how I joked with the doctor about finally being able to stop buying condoms, how Emily had squeezed my hand and said, "This doesn't change anything between us." I thought about the nights I'd come home late, kissing her forehead while she pretended to sleep, too tired to talk. I thought about Connor, faceless but real, touching her in ways I hadn't in months, and the jealousy was a living thing, clawing at my insides. But mostly I thought about the baby, this tiny life that wasn't mine, growing inside the woman I'd sworn to protect, and the unbearable complexity of it all. How you could love someone and hate them in the same breath. How forgiveness felt both impossible and inevitable. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost its edges. I poured myself a whiskey, then another, the burn doing nothing to dull the ache. I scrolled through old photos on my phone, our honeymoon in Costa Rica, her covered in mud after ziplining, both of us laughing so hard we couldn't breathe, the Christmas we attempted to cook a turkey and set off the smoke alarm, the selfie she took last month at the county fair, cotton candy stuck in her hair, her eyes bright with a happiness I now knew was tainted. Every memory felt poison, but I couldn't stop looking, like picking at a wound to see how deep it went. Eventually I texted her. "We need to talk tomorrow. Neutral ground. Lawyer maybe." She replied instantly. "I love you. I'm sorry." I stared at those words until they blurred, then turned off my phone. Love. What a cruel elastic word. Stretched to the point of snapping by two people who'd once fit together like puzzle pieces. I thought about the support groups I'd found online after the sterility diagnosis, men who'd raised donor-conceived kids, men who'd forgiven affairs, men who'd walked away and never looked back. I didn't know which one I'd be. Maybe none. Maybe I'd carve out a new category. One where the pain never quite fades but you learn to carry it like a stone in your pocket. A reminder of what was and what might still be. As dawn crept through the blinds, painting the kitchen in bruised purples and grays, I stood up on legs that felt borrowed. The house was too quiet, the absence of her humming, her bare feet on the hardwood, her sleepy good morning from the bedroom, it was deafening. I walked to the nursery we'd never finished, the one with the half-painted walls and the crib still in its box in the garage, and I stood in the doorway imagining a different life, one where the test had been positive because of some medical miracle, where we'd cried happy tears instead of these. But that life was a ghost, and ghosts don't keep you warm. I don't know what happens next. Divorce papers, maybe. Co-parenting a child that shares my address but not my blood. Or maybe, against every instinct screaming in my chest, some version of reconciliation. A scarred, limping thing that barely resembles the marriage we had. But as I stood there in the half-light, watching dust motes dance in the air that would never smell like baby powder, one truth settled into my bones with the weight of a gravestone. Love isn't a promise you keep. It's a risk you take every single day, and sometimes the house always wins.